Hello my fellow hollowed hunters, today I will show you how to make the throwing dagger from Elden Ring. As always, a list of materials is provided in the video's description below, as well as a link to my Patreon where you can find any template seen in these videos. Warning, this build will require the use of power tools that can be dangerous. Please take the proper precautions necessary for your tools. I am not responsible for your actions, so replicate these videos at your own risk. But without further ado, let's get started. For part 1, we will be cutting out the template from our wood. Take your template and a thumbtack and puncture holes into the template at these key points. Secure the template to the wood with some tape. Trace the outline of the throwing knife onto the wood. Then mark the key points through the punctured holes. Take a straight edge and connect the key points to recreate the internal design. Secure your wood plank to a sturdy table using clamps. Cut along the template guidelines using a jigsaw. Flip your wooden billet, line up your template, and mark the key points on the other side. Take a straight edge and connect the key points to recreate the internal design. Take a ruler and mark the center of the wooden billet's side. Try your best to draw a straight line around the entire side of your wooden billet. And with that, we have completed our wooden billet, and we'll move on to part 2. For part 2, we will be carving the details into our wooden billet. Our throwing dagger is divided into 2 parts, the blade and the handle. Carve a flat slope into the blade from the face center guideline to the side center guideline on all 4 edges. You may use whatever carving tools you have at your disposal, but I will start by using a whittling knife. This build is too small for the chisels and shavers, but too big for the rotary tool. The whittling knife feels like the best tool for these small, simple builds like this throwing dagger. If you choose to imitate my method, please take the proper precautions necessary for your tools, because the whittling knife is very sharp and will cut you if you make a mistake. I'm not an expert, so please research the proper safety techniques. Carve a flat slope into the handle from the face center guideline to the side center guideline on all 4 edges. This one is a little more rounded than the blade. After our wooden billet has taken shape, it will become important to start considering the balance of our throwing dagger. There are 3 types of throwing knives defined by their balance: blade heavy, handle heavy, and balanced. The Elden Ring throwing dagger item description states its weight is expertly balanced. I will be making mine balanced based off this item description, but if you want, you can make yours however you wish. For an expertly balanced throwing dagger, we are attempting to put the center of mass as close to the center as possible. Take a ruler and mark the wooden dagger halfway down its length. As we flatten the face of the throwing dagger, periodically check the balance by balancing the throwing dagger on your finger. It should balance wherever the center of mass is. If the center of mass is off target, that means that whichever side the dagger is leaning toward, that side is too heavy and you must sand it down carefully to tune the balance toward their targeted center point. Taper the blade down to a point by shaving off the top. Correct any mistakes and sharpen the edges with the rotary tool. Sand down the surface of the entire throwing dagger using a coarse grit, a fine grit, and an extra fine grit sandpaper. And with that, we have completed our wooden throwing dagger, and we'll be moving on to part 3. For part 3, we will be stabilizing our wooden throwing dagger. This procedure is optional. You do not need to stabilize your wood, but I want to see if the stabilizer will give my wooden props the extra strength they need to become effective weapons. I'll be using this custom-made vacuum chamber. I recorded an extra video that you can find on my Patreon showing how I made this vacuum chamber, but you can probably find instructions how to make one yourself on the internet. Take your vacuum chamber and place your wooden throwing dagger inside. Take any heavy object and place them on top of the wooden throwing dagger to stop it from floating. Pour your stabilizing resin over the dagger until it is fully submerged. Make sure that the dagger is pushed under the resin, but make sure there is some airspace above the resin so that the vacuum does not suck up any of the liquid resin. Seal the top and pump out the air. Let it sit for 6 hours so the resin penetrates the wood. After 6 hours, we can remove our resin-soaked throwing dagger from the vacuum chamber. Place the resin-soaked throwing dagger onto an aluminum-covered baking tray. Any leftover resin can be reused. Put the extra back into the bottle using a funnel. Make sure to read the instructions to your stabilizing resin. The one that I'm using is called Cactus juice. The resin requires heat to cure. I will stick it in the toaster oven for 1 hour at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. I have pulled the throwing dagger from the toaster oven to show how the stabilizing resin has hardened. Unfortunately, it seems as if I did something wrong, as the dagger bled some of the resin out while it was baking, leaving an uneven stabilization. But it is still an improvement over just the wood. And with that, we have completed our stabilized throwing dagger, and we'll move on to part 4. For part 4, we will be painting and gilding our stabilized throwing dagger. Take the masking tape and cover the blade portion of your throwing dagger. The tape should cut across the center of the guard. The in-game design of these throwing daggers appears to be constructed from one solid material that was just grinded down and polished on its blade. The handle appears to be the same material but has been left to rust. For the rusted handle, take the black spray paint and lay down a quick base coat layer on all surfaces. Let it dry for a few minutes, but while it's still tacky, apply a modest coat of silver spray paint on all surfaces. Let it dry for about an hour so that it will dry completely. Once the paint is dry, take a bit of the burnt umber paint and water it down before applying it to all surfaces. Normally rust forms from moisture oxidizing the metal, which I imagine is caused by the sweaty hands of whoever was throwing these daggers. I used my fingers to help spread and remove the brown watery rust paint to get a more natural look to the rusty handle. Let it dry for about an hour, then remove the masking tape. Take the masking tape and cover the handle of your throwing dagger. We will now gild the blade of the throwing dagger. This is optional. You could just spray paint the blade silver like we did with the handle. However, I want to try this new technique to see if it gives a better metal look. Take the glue and a brush and paint a thin layer of glue across the entire blade surface. Let it dry for about a minute and ensure that the glue is sticky. Then carefully lay silver leaf on the surface and lightly smooth it out with a clean brush. It does not have to be perfect, so you can apply torn pieces in the gaps that you missed. Now here I applied some silver leaf polish to smooth out any wrinkles and seams, but I was not happy with the result. I'm not sure what the issue was, but the polish that I used made the metal texture dull. It is still an improvement over the spray paint and is a more uniform look, but the loss of luster is unfortunate. I would probably recommend to skip this part or try a better polish. After everything is dried, we will take a sealant and coat the entire blade in a layer of it. Let it dry for about an hour. And with that, we have completed our Elden Ring throwing dagger. The throwing dagger turned out good, an easy build that I'm sure most of you could replicate. I've been lamenting the fact that my wooden weapons are not durable enough to withstand the stupidity of me swinging them around, so I've been looking into ways to strengthen the wood. In this video, I wanted to test out my prototype vacuum chamber for the stabilizing process. It seems to work well, however the resin did not penetrate the wood effectively. Upon heating, the resin leaked out. According to my sources online, this was caused by water that was trapped in the wood. If you heat the water, it pushes out the resin as the water vapor tries to escape. So before you put your wood in the resin, you should heat the wood to dry it out. Another issue is that when you heat the resin, it emits a lot of noxious fumes and creates a big mess if the piece leaks like mine did. You do not want to stick this stuff in your food oven. In conclusion, it was a nice easy build with a satisfying result. I like both the new techniques, but they have their issues. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for more builds in the future.